And welcome back to the Justin Thurber Show. I'm Justin Thurber, and as always, my co-host Jim Davidson. And then today we have two very special guests. We've had them on before, and they're both joining us on today's episode. Aaron Packard and Maria Collins, both now officially state committee man and state committee woman. Welcome everybody.
Drum roll.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Justin. Thank you,
In
Jim.
general. So
Thank you both for having us.
I know a lot of people that usually watch the show or listen to the show. We talk about current topics and things going on at a national level. But Jim and I, part of our show is to reach out and maybe educate people or show people a side of politics that they don't see too often and they don't have exposure with. And I know a lot of people think, well, that's not exciting or why do I care? But it makes a big difference. Aaron and Maria are going to have a direct say in the Republicans in their districts that are being put up to run against Democrats. They have a big say in policies that these Republicans are probably going to want to run on. And they're the driving force behind what's going to happen in 2024 for two big districts in Massachusetts. So if you usually don't listen to a show like this, I say, hey, stick around, listen for a little bit. You're going to hear a lot of technical stuff about things that have happened recently, but also their vision for the future, what they want to achieve, and what they see for the party. So thank you both for coming. And let me start off with Jim because how the genesis of this happened is there was a meeting last week to certify the election of all the state committee men and women across the state. Is that true? Am I true with that?
The caucuses
The
that were ran.
caucuses, correct. And Jim was able to go. He lives a little closer than I do. Jim was able to go, and he's only able to spend 45 minutes. And he saw Maria and Aaron there, and he's like, Justin, we got to have him back on. We reached out, and it was really good. I guess a lot of good things happened. So I don't know who wants to go first, but whoever wants to go first, you can just start talking. Maybe tell a little bit about yourself and how you got there and your experience at that event on was it Wednesday?
Thursday.
Thursday. All right, Thursday.
Go ahead, Aaron.
All righty. Hey, pointing right at me. Nah, no problem. Name Aaron Packard, like Justin said. And I am now the official state committee man for the Worcester Middlesex Senate District of Massachusetts. I was very proud and grateful to be able to attend one of the key democratic processes of our republic. That's you get to see the debates, you get to have say in what is happening in our backyard, which I've been running on for months now. It's our backyard, and to be a part of it, I get goosebumps just thinking about our forefathers setting this up so we could have these debates. It was a great honor to be there, as well as very eye-opening, and it was confirming of other things that I've been reading and hearing too. So I'm not happy with individuals, but I am happy and proud to be part of the Mass GOP State Committee.
Now, just a quick question: Have what's been your background with the state committee meeting? So obviously you were just elected, so I wouldn't expect you guys to have much background. But was this your first state committee meeting? So were you going into this with a brand new perspective, or had you seen others in the past?
You're up, Maria. You first. Yeah.
So I had not been at a state committee. I had ran in 2020. So this was my first experience going into an actual state committee meeting.
Yeah, this was my first state committee meeting official. Been obviously all over the place at different committee meetings and whatnot, running for state rep last cycle, and this is a first. It didn't go anywhere near what I had conjured up in my mind.
Yeah.
Well, and that's
Maria,
what I think is interesting as well too, because both of you are outsiders looking into something for the first time, brand new, and I value that experience so much, because I think there's so many people that get ingrained with this stuff and they just get used to the way things are done, and they say, oh, this is how things are done because that's how they're always done. So for me,
Right.
having like that new perspective and just hearing what you have to say is just is so valuable.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Maria, just give a little bit. I know we had you on before, but for people who hadn't watched that show, just give a little bit about you and the road you took to get where you are presently.
Okay. So the road to become state committee woman.
Sure. Yeah.
So, like I said, I ran back in 2020. I did very well, 48% of the vote. My candidate retired, moved to Florida, so I was asked to caucus in. So since I did so well with my district and the voters, I decided that I would caucus in. And then I won the caucus, and here I am. So our first state committee meeting was on Thursday. I've been involved politically for quite some time. Heard some things and never really was involved in that part of, the party. A lot of people at the time when I was running didn't even know what the state committee was and what their function was, what they do. So it was really important to get people engaged in that, to know, what the role is. And it really plays a big role on our candidates and who they run. So, yeah, it was quite eye-opening to me when I went. Like I said, I went to you guys earlier. I went in with an open mind. I put everything out of my mind of what's been going on social media because, social media is social media.
Yes.
People are going to push their narrative, their propaganda, or whatever. But I was kind of disappointed in some things of the division. The division is a big, huge problem, and I don't know how you're going to fix that. And that's my concern moving forward. And, how much influence can I have within the party if, we're just going to be pushed aside?
Right.
So if I can say something to people who out there, there's a lot of people out there that don't pay attention to politics, or just like, if I'm a Republican, I'm a Republican, and they're like, what do you mean there's division? And unfortunately, it seems like within the Republican Party, and I'm sure in the Democratic Party as well, but there's all these, I don't know if you want to call them like tests. That, do you believe this? Do you believe this? Are you moderate? Are you more conservative? Are you more liberal? Are you, they call it a Baker Republican or a Rhino, and we throw all these terms around where I think most average people would sit there and be like, I don't care. I just want Republicans to win, and I want conservatism, and I want fiscal responsibility. And I think what happens is maybe sometimes some of the politicians that run have lost sight of what really matters, which is the people. And I guess it's human nature to sit there and you get around other people and you're trying to figure something out and maybe how to win. And you're like, hey, we're going to win by being more moderate or being soft on this. And then you start looking more and more not like a Republican, but you're looking like something else. So within the party, it seems like there's a lot of division. I think, which is kind of a good thing for me. I think a lot of people are seeing this. And I think a lot of people want to go in and try fixing it in some way. And I know I've talked to Maria about this, Aaron about this, and Jim about this. I think one of the ways we're going to have to fix this is by getting back to what the people want.
That's
Not
exactly
not what the
Agreed.
party wants, what the people want.
people.
I
Exactly.
agree. That's important because demographically across the state, each area is different. So the people that put me in my area is conservative. Okay, it is. And maybe somewhere up in the North Shore, it's not as conservative, or Western Mass or this. So we really have to collectively look at these areas of the people that are representing. So I'm representing my conservative voters that put me in there. So does that mean I'm on the wrong, I want to explain. So when we
Yes.
walked into the meeting, there was two sides. There was a right side and a left side. So I was
Which I
told
didn't
by
even see until halfway through the meeting. I was like, oh, wow, we are
Yeah,
divided.
Aaron, I
Sorry
saw
to
you
interrupt
were on
Maria,
the.
but
so
I was like, wow.
So, a
what's
few of the
this?
people that I know, they're like, oh, I saved you a seat. So I sat down. So I looked down and there's a package of Kool-Aid on my cup.
Well,
No kidding, a little package. And
that's
I
a good
said,
point. And I was just gonna say, like, so the implications of this division. So we look at the legislature, right? So Republicans have 3 seats out of 40 in the state Senate, and I think it's what, like 25 or 26 out of 140, 160 in the state legislature. So this division has a real impact on the performance of the
Yes,
party. And I was able to
yes,
attend for the first 45 minutes or so, and one of the first things I noticed, yeah, that was that, you know, on the seats of every state committee member was a pack of Kool-Aid, and this was, I guess, supposed to be a dig at the former chairman. But after that, it's like I saw enough where I'm like, okay, I can see where this meeting is going, and it's not, to me as an outsider, I'm like, this is not a serious meeting. This is not a serious way to start a meeting. So I left after the first 45 minutes, and I heard the meeting ended up going pretty much till midnight.
It
So
was 6 hours.
yes,
I heard there's a
yes.
lot to unpack there. So yeah, maybe you can help unpack
Well,
what happened in the meeting
Well,
after that.
can I cut in
right,
before we unpack? Because again, I think what happens, a lot of people listening or watching don't get all what we're talking about, because a lot of things that happen, if you're not politically involved, you don't
right,
understand the significance of the Kool-Aid packet on the cup. Howie
right.
Carr was not a big fan of Jim Lyons, um, and he called it the Jim Lyons Kool-Aid Cole, or
Right.
No, Jim Jones
Jim
Kool-Aid
Jones,
Co.
yeah, Jim Jones Lions Kool-Aid Court, or
Yes.
whatever
Uh-huh.
it is. So I don't even, like I said, I don't even pay attention to that, because one thing I've
Right.
said when I got into politics, and Jim, you can back me up on this, is I don't give Democrats a lot of credit for a lot of things, but one thing I'll give them credit for is when push comes to shove, they'll vote for the candidate. They don't care if it's a democratic socialist. They don't care if it's an outright communist. If that's the candidate, they'll vote for them. What do we do as Republicans? We put Kool-Aid on cups because someone might disagree with us, or someone liked a person before them, or a different political candidate. And again, it's kind of childish. It's something we have to move away from. And I'm really hoping that the state committee men and women like yourselves will start pushing to change that from your position. So, yeah, if Maria or Aaron want to speak about that night a little bit, feel free.
Well, I'm not going to engage in that. I don't find it productive. I don't think the voters enjoy it. They're worried about their families, their communities, our state. I mean, there's a lot going on, and that is just that's propaganda or whatever, or trying to get their narrative pushed through. So when I said that I walked in, I wasn't aware that there was already established sides. Just few of the people that I knew, said, "Come sit with us. We saved you a seat." That's when it made clear that there was a division in the party. So it was a division on what the issues were at hand, which they had been going through. I don't know how past couple years with, Jim Lyons, the lawsuits, everything. So it was abundantly clear to me that this was this side and this was this side. The one thing that I was kind of disappointed in is that, okay, the people that I'm conservative, so the conservatives took me in. I don't know if there was Kool-Aid on everybody's, or if
They're
it was
pretty
just on
much
us.
were.
Huh?
They're pretty much were. I think they may have missed a few seats, but yeah, that inside bad joke was misplaced either way you look at it, you know.
Yeah, and it was a joke. It didn't hurt my feelings. I just thought it was kind of childish. But my point is that um, for the votes, this division of the votes, if people wanted truth, we weren't going to get it, because the people on the truth side, we didn't have the 2/3 vote.
And that's a fact, Maria, and I'm going to riff right off of that on you. Is main reason why I became a Senate committee man, state committee man, excuse me, was for truth and justice.
Yes.
You know, and the American way, just like they tried to get rid of off of Superman. You know, the truth, justice, and American way. That's whoever's right or whoever's wrong. That remains. I want to find out the facts. I want to know what happened precisely. If Jim was wrong or the treasurer was wrong, it doesn't matter the outcome. I want to know how we got to this point. What are the facts you can't ignore? They're out there just being covered. Now, to the participants, because it was open to the public, which was great. So they got a chance to see what goes on. Well, wow, what an eye opener for them. I've already gotten emails and private messages on like, oh, I have so many questions. What is this? What is that? How does this work? Well, yeah, the process of objecting or adjourning or move a motion to whatever they want to do with a question, the public doesn't really have the insight on it. Now, you want to follow rules and you want to follow the regulations made up of the entire committee. Well, these bylaws haven't been updated since 2016. And second of all, not every one of them are following their own bylaws, for crying out loud.
Correct.
And
That
that has to
happened. I
be
agree.
addressed.
And can I
That was
speak?
the part that
Go right
bothered
ahead.
me. That
Yeah,
bothered
can I
me.
speak to that too? Because here's one of the things. This happened in earlier caucuses that Jim and I had covered, is how they didn't follow their bylaws, and it gives this impression that the powers that be or the people in charge are just going to get what they want. So you disillusion your people that are backing you, all your constituents, everyone that sits there and like wants to believe it's a fair game. When these laws are set up, these bylaws are set up to say, hey, listen, it's a fair process, it's a good process, we're following what we're supposed to do. When that's not done right, people lose faith, people lose trust in what's going on.
And
And
that's where it needs
also,
to be changed at the grassroots from the
Yes.
bottom up, but because it's happening from the top down right now, as we all
but
see.
let's keep in mind, okay, Aaron, when we were there, um, some of the bylaws were interpreted by what side you were on,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
Point
we
of
had
order,
an
point
issue,
of order, point of order, back and
right?
forth.
But no, the people that were bringing forth the stuff that wanted to get on the record and the truth were doing the right thing.
Yes.
They really were, because they wanted the truth out there and they wanted answers. But then, when we came
They were
time to
splitting
another
hairs,
thing,
Maria. Yeah.
right, but they also were interpreting one of the bylaws to their benefit to not put somebody in a position that they well deserved.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Oh,
So
it
they
makes
all
total
play with the
sense. That's
100%.
what
bylaws.
I observed. Yeah.
Yeah, they all play with the bylaws.
And
You know,
and
and I
that's the
was kind
point, right? That's the point, is
Right.
when you start doing that to get your way, all these people that want to see a good, fair system, just like they don't care about,
Right.
and we lose them. And
That's
then
right.
what happens is at the grassroots level, and we'll talk about this later, the grassroots level, where you're going to have to build and you're going to have to go and earn back that trust that was just torched, because people are like, you guys don't care. What have you done? Right? They're picking their people they want. They're not my voice. They're their voice. And you guys have a
Right.
tough and tall task ahead of you.
One of the things that
We
struck me
do.
too is in the bylaws, the party chair is not supposed to support a primary candidate in
Ding,
any
ding, ding, ding.
particular race. And here you
Yes.
have this seat that just opened up, and there was two primary candidates that have expressed interest in that race. And one of them's an older feller that's been with the party, for a long time. I think he was elected in 2010. And then you had this very young candidate as well that's looking to get involved with the party. And pretty much you see the chair of the party fully backing the incumbent and really not giving any time of day to the other primary candidate, which is clearly against the bylaws. So I'm just, thinking as one of the big issues is bringing new people into the party and bringing like outsiders. And to me, if I'm an outsider looking in and I see the favoritism being played at that level, I'm thinking to myself, why would I want to get involved
Exactly.
with this?
What's the point?
The foot's going to be on the scale of the establishment the whole way through.
I agree. And that came up also with the presidential nominees. So it's basically made clear that the GOP is supporting DeSantis. And I'm not going to get in a battle about DeSantis
Yep.
or Trump,
Yep.
but not everybody is, that was made by them. That you cannot, as the chairperson, endorse during a primary. the voters decide who it is, and then we support that candidate. So that's the concerning part to me, that they're saying, well, this is who we're picking. And I said this at my own caucus, that you need to notice they're picking from the same pool, their people.
Yes.
Their people. Jimmy said this young girl, she actually spoke there. She was well spoken. She would have been something that I would have looked at and said, hey, she could be a very viable candidate.
For
That's a
only
very
having
winning
1 minute,
state.
she was clear and concise for that 1 minute.
Was, and I mean, she was great. So, you know, I think it's really important now at this point that we have those kind of discussions, because like I said, I'm going to have people in my area that I think that are great candidates that the other people may not, but they're not in my district.
Well, you bring up a
And,
good point.
Right.
Sorry, you bring up a good point.
Go ahead.
All
Sorry.
right, sorry. Yeah, you bring up a great point, because look at me as just a person running for state rep in the primary, and people coming up and like, who are you voting for governor? And it was Dowdy or
Right.
Deal, and I'm like, does it matter? And people were shocked that I said that. I'm like, does it matter? And they're like, well, who are you voting for? I go, it doesn't matter, because whoever gets it today is the person I'm going to vote for and help after today's vote. We all got to come together. So, when you have the GOP, the head of the GOP in Massachusetts already endorsing DeSantis, and we don't know who the selection is yet, and all signs point to it might be Trump, it might be DeSantis, who knows? But we should be like, hey, let the people decide. And again, that's where
Well,
we
to
lose.
her credit, she said that she did give an invitation to each of the candidates, presidential candidates running.
Yeah.
So that's to her credit. But I think that people ask those questions when you're on the campaign trail because the party is divided.
Yes.
So if you are a Dowdy person, or if you're a Deal person, I'm just using them as examples because that was the
Oh, yes.
latest of our thing. In their mind, if you're a Dowdy, you believe one thing, if you're a Deal, another. So there you go again, whereas the establishment versus the conservative grassroots.
Yes.
And, I sat by some wonderful people and I said, is it always like this? And she says, they don't want to work with us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
She goes,
that's-
we try. They
That's
do
the
not
problem.
work with us.
Is-
And that
is-
was very telling. You see that on social media. We witnessed it firsthand.
Yes.
They are not going to give these conservative people a voice. They're going to, or candidates. And how are we going to get people to run if we have them, we get this great candidate that we think would be wonderful. And then you've got the people that are going to trash this person. I mean, it's really, I don't know about the unifying anymore, because like I said, I don't know who they're uniting with. It's certainly not me. Is it the Democrats? I don't know. I mean, you hear this uniparty thing, and it's starting to look very much like, look at what Baker, how many Democrats he donated to. So I'm a little reluctant to use that word unity, because
Yeah.
that's not who I want to unify with. I want to
You're
unify
not-
with my party.
Yeah, you're not gonna please 100% of the people 100% of the time. That's
No,
a fact.
it's
It's
perfect.
been that way throughout since the beginning of time, and here we are. So Maria and myself, we were elected to this position because of who we are now, not for what we could become or how I could possibly change my mind in 10 years. No, it's now. I don't flip flop. I say what I mean what I say, and I stick to the integrity and values that were passed on from my forefathers, from my teachings, from my own heart and soul. Hey, the truth comes out. It does. No matter how many times you wash it, it's going to rise to the top of the suds. And
Yeah.
there it is. So you best just be forward now instead of trying to cover your butt. Oh, well, he's going to pay me $50, for example, to change my vote. No, I'm not changing my vote. And that's why I ended up where I am right now, because people tried to influence the vote behind the scenes. No. You don't do that. You don't tell somebody how to vote. You can only present the facts of which candidates are there, period. You let the people decide,
And we,
just like Maria
right,
said.
and we have to address the issue that's going on in Massachusetts. So many, we're having very low voter turnout, right?
Correct.
Right.
And people are saying my vote doesn't matter. We have to pinpoint why they think that is. Is it because of the Mass GOP? Is it because, we don't have grassroots candidates? We're all, we're doing the same establishment. You know, I would think that I thought if we were, uniting, that we would have had a discussion about that seat that's
Yep.
opened by the Democrats and really have a discussion on who would be the best candidate to win in that spot. But there was no discussion. There was no debate. So if we're not part of that process,
Yeah,
we're not going to be
we
do
can't,
well in the state committee. So
Yeah.
we
we'll
can't
have to
have
do
an infight.
grassroots.
That's what it is.
So for everyone that's stayed on for the last 25 minutes and listening, it might sound like, what's the point? There's division in the Republican Party. There's powers at play that want to keep the status quo. But what I'm going to sit here and tell you is the God's honest truth, and it's played out in these caucuses. Conservatives, when they had the opportunity to have their voice heard, have picked conservative state committee men and women almost across the board in Massachusetts. The other thing that's happening is we have a bunch of people who are running now who understand that it's not going to be a top-down approach to fixing this. It's going to be a bottom-up approach. And to me, that's the better way to go. To me, that's where you get out, you talk to the people, and you prove to the people that we're actually here for you because we're just as pissed off as you are, and we want to make change. And I think there's a lot of politicians that are up and coming that are done with the status quo and want to get in and want to make change and want to help people out because
Towns and
we
city
keep.
councils is the first place you start.
Yep.
So, and with that being said, where does the GOP stand on helping us, correct? So there's no money, and the national committee doesn't help us with money.
Yep.
So, I mean, I as much as I'm honored to be put there by my voters, I have concerns if that I had a candidate to go to the GOP. So, I think you're right. I think at this point we represent our districts and when we help our candidates and we find our candidates. And I think that's
Help those
I think
candidates
that's
directly.
right. And we have to get out and really inform these voters that we hear you. We're right there with you. We know what's going on. We know it's tough. And, we have to be boots on the ground more than ever.
Yeah.
One question I had is seeing the division that's in the GOP right now. I would think that the leader would want to bridge the divide between both groups, and that would mean having negotiations between both sides and giving concessions to both sides. And like one that would be an easy slam dunk for me would be like the stuff going on with the treasurer. So when the treasurer shut down the bank accounts, there's still a lot of people that have a lot of issue with that.
A lot of
And
questions.
one would be pursuing some sort of disciplinary action on that, whether it's removing the treasurer or some sort of concession there. So I guess my question is, given the division, did you feel like there was any sort of concessions made to the non-establishment side or the more conservative side? Like, did you feel like there was any middle ground that was trying to be met, or like, did you feel like you had any wins, I guess, in terms of negotiations or concessions that the establishment gave?
Well, that's a good point. So when it started off with that vote, the establishment side just wanted to get rid of it, didn't want it heard. But they had originally wanted to question Q&A, Jeff Deal, the treasurer and all this. But then they decided they wanted to get rid of it. The conservative side wanted to move forward because they wanted to get on the record the information that they had. And I actually had the deposition from the treasurer. And that's where I learned my information. I didn't pick a side either way until I had that information in my hands. So I was disappointed. No, it finally it wasn't getting anywhere. This is why we were there for so late at night. Somebody had approached and said, if he's willing to admit this testimony on the record, then we will drop the lawsuit. And he wouldn't. So it just was, there was no negotiating, there was no, you couldn't even put the facts forward. Trying to get the facts on the record was being pushed out of the way. So it was a very
And
challenging.
they tried to speed through it. Just let, it's getting late, yeah, and that's the price of freedom,
Right, they
buddy.
just wanted to rush everything through. I mean, we probably wouldn't have been there for 6 hours had we done it their way. But then there wouldn't have been fair, there wouldn't have been debates, there wouldn't be roll calls. We did have times where we had 2 motions on the floor. She was making unanimous votes where they wanted a roll call because ayes, nays, that's kind of hard to determine on a serious vote, right?
We did get that
How many
process.
did you hear,
Uh,
Huh?
Another question I had was on the. So I didn't stick around for the vote on the ratification of the state committee caucuses. So, to me, like Justin had mentioned, there were some concerns around some of the caucuses. So, as an outsider, I would have. My perspective is each one should have been voted on individually and then up or down, given that there were concerns with some, but not necessarily others. So, how did that vote go? Was it like you had to ratify all the members or none, or did it go down the line of like, hey, let's talk about each district one-on-one?
Well, it took 3 hours to get through it just to seat us. So there were, being that there were discrepancies and concerns of 2 of the caucuses, those were separated from the other remaining 4 of us that were confirmed. Then they went back and debated the seating and the occurrences that caused for.
Yeah, but remember, they unconfirmed us too in a different vote.
Yeah, on 3
So
times. So we were confirmed 3 times in one
we
night
were
within the 3 hours. So
we thought we were going to be able to vote in the next issue, and they're like, nope, not this time. We're like, what just happened here?
Wow.
so it
Yeah,
took a while
sorry,
for
Aaron.
them to beat that through, but they were eventually just all seated, saying, "Well, too bad. This is what it is." That's my loose scenario out of the whole thing. Is, yeah, too bad. Here it is.
So they had a motion to divide. Somebody put a motion to divide the caucuses because there was not challenges on 4 of them, right? And then we wanted to be able to debate the other 2. So that was a struggle, and then they finally did it because they had already confirmed us, then they had to go back. So there was testimony, if you want to call it testimony, it's not a court of law, of why they couldn't confirm those 2. So John Milligan gave the information of why they felt that they just could not be confirmed or even to count the provisional ballots.
Oh,
So
this
they,
isn't the 2 in the Suffolk. I was thinking this was the Suffolk district, but this is
yeah,
actually the one in
we had
the.
debate about that, and they
Well,
voted on it, and we didn't have the vote, we didn't have the 2/3 vote, so they won that one. The argument was that you need to give a 10 days notice if you change the venue, and they didn't. So the side that was against that, they just wanted to either have another caucus. Their argument was there was no opponent, so what's the big deal? And the other side was on principle and bylaws.
Yeah. So
That's
really,
why they continued. Go ahead.
yep. Sorry, really quick too. Just for people out there that don't know what's going on, we're talking a lot about caucuses. Usually, this isn't the typical way a state committee man or state committee woman are voted on. Usually, that's in March of the primary in March. What
Presidential
happened?
primary, yeah.
Yeah, and what happened in Massachusetts, there was a bunch of open seats. And the unique thing about this, and this is why when Jim and I always talk about doing something, get involved, and even something as simple as joining your local Republican town committee, if you're an actual Republican town committee member, not one that just shows up, you have to sign some paperwork, but you are able to vote for a state committee man and woman if there is a caucus to fill an empty seat, because they
Correct.
usually don't want to keep that seat empty for a long time. But some of these were kept empty for a long time. And then will you next year, because now you're in the seat, will you have to run again to be put back
Yes.
in? So
Yes.
they could run against you. But here's the other thing too
They
is
could.
I think people need to understand how valuable your position is because, again, as you alluded to earlier, and I was just thinking about this, is you had both run previously for one of us for state senate and one of us for state rep, and your state committee, man or woman, or both, because there's two per district. I mean, one man, one woman per district.
Right.
Usually, are supposed to help the candidates. And if memory
Right.
serves me correctly, both of you didn't get a lot of help from your state committee people, did you?
No, I did not.
The committee man who I filled the vacancy, he did make an appearance and he said, hey, we got to get our Republican candidates elected. And he's, specifically called me out in my own town, my own town committee. He said, hey, we got to get, Aaron elected and whatnot. And, so he did have positive words and stuff, but that's all I heard from either committee people throughout my tenure as a candidate.
So I like this too because I like that the RTCs got to vote, and it shows that a lot of these RTCs, because they had
Yes.
options, overwhelmingly voted for conservative. And again, I don't know if it's a backlash against the same old because that happens in politics from time to time. They see the people in there doing nothing, so they just want to change. Or I think it, because I've talked to a lot of people, and I'm sure you have too. There's a lot of conservative people, and if they're not conservative, they're just done with what the heck is going on in Massachusetts, and they really want to flip the script. So I think what's happening is when these people had a voice, they went for change, common sense, and conservatives. And I think one of the things is at the top right now, they maybe haven't got the message, or maybe they're starting to get the message that their base is changing and that moderates aren't the only ones that are going to be able to win in Massachusetts. So, and I know what you are both going to do because we've talked about it, is now that you're in place, because you've been affected before by not having a state committee person help you, you're going to set up and put things in place to help Republicans and conservatives actually start winning. So people that know you, that can reach out to help you, starting now, we got to start now. We're going to have processes in place. I know, Marie, you keep alluding to the money. Money's good. Money's needed. But I think
Word
after
of
this,
mouth is the most powerful
Just
thing
wait,
in the world.
Yes.
I'm not, that's their issue is the
Yes,
money.
yes.
The money issue isn't a big thing for me because at this point, I'm grassroots.
Yes.
Yeah, we need some money, but we don't need $3 million. We don't
Nope.
need this. And I'm concerned about donating to the Mass GOP because we don't know where it is fiscally.
Yes.
And, and with the treasurer, we didn't get the proof. We got some of the proof in his own words, what he did, but there was no consequences for that. So that's, as a voter, I'm not going to be sending money. And I know that OCPF has an investigation and the FEC has them under investigation.
Aaron.
So it's not a safe
Yeah.
place to say that I would send my money.
As I said earlier in our episode here, is that if you or any of you listening or watching this, if you are skeptical about donating to the Mass GOP, it very well understood. So support your local candidate directly and their RTCs.
Yes.
Period.
Well, I'll tell you, and we've discussed this. I've discussed this with Maria, you, Aaron, and Bill, and I've said on the show multiple times. Like Rona McDaniel, when she got reelected at the national level, to run the GOP, it was heard across the nation that most people I'm not donating to the GOP anymore, and you're seeing that even at the local level because after seeing the Baker PAC support Democrats and put money to Democrats, people I had hundreds of people tell me this. I am only going to vote or only going to donate to the person that I know, and I know they're going to do what they say. No longer am I going to donate to this nameless, faceless party that's somewhere and you have no idea what the heck they're doing with it. If I'm going to spend my time or money, it's going to be with someone I trust and someone that I know and someone that's going to do what I want them to do. It makes it tough for our party, but I think it also makes us have better candidates.
It has better candidates, and it actually serves more accountability, right?
Correct.
So I'm supporting Justin, and I said, oh, you know what? I'm going to give you some money.
Yeah.
And if you don't do what I want, I'm going to come back on you. Whereas if you're just donating to a party and a bunch of candidates they pick, it
Yeah.
makes it more personal and it makes it more engaged with your voters. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying like, at least if I have that relationship with him, I can say, well, Justin and I didn't like this and we can have that discussion.
Correct.
But when you have this GOP thing, just picking your candidates and we're just telling them, and we don't even know if we're going to get any of that money as a
Correct.
candidate, because they also pick who gets the money
That's
on who's winnable or not.
that's a
So,
good.
I mean, at
That's
this
a.
point, like I
I'm sorry.
said,
I always cut you off, Marie. I apologize. That's a good point because you bring up
oh,
good
it's all
points, and
right.
for people that don't know, is when you donate to like the Mass GOP, as Maria stated, that money doesn't always trickle down to the candidates that you want it to. It doesn't trickle down to maybe your local candidate running, maybe even a statewide candidate. A lot of it might not trickle down to, and who knows the formula they use. I think what happens is sometimes maybe they put more emphasis on some positions than others.
Yeah.
That's up for them. But I think what's happening is people are done just donating money to this, and then
Right.
their local candidates aren't
Still
winning or they're not
losing.
seeing anything for it,
Right.
for their investment. Yeah.
Right. Right. And
I,
right now,
I,
the GOP doesn't have any money going,
Yes.
for the voters right now, there's no money. So I'm not sure how they think they're going to run these elections. I don't know if they're going to put us more in debt. But if as a candidate myself, I spent some out of my pocket, had a little fundraiser, enough to get what I needed to do. And I think if people see more and more that we're not the money established candidate, they're going to be happier because the voters are done with that. They're
I,
done with this
yeah,
game and this money
I didn't
and
have
this
a WinRed
grifting. And,
account.
and it's just, it blows my mind. And that's why I said we can be successful through the voters.
Yeah. So you didn't have a WinRed account, Aaron? I heard you say.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I spoke over Maria. I
No, no, that's
apologize.
fine.
Yeah, I didn't have a WinRed account. I used
Me neither.
Anodot.
Yeah.
Um, Simply because one, there was a lot of point blank said, excuse my language, a lot of bullshit going on from the top down. The national RNC, Rona, and everything, and all the accusations and the money going to, extravagant expenses. I just didn't have faith in the level of win red. So, I went a legit route of Anodot. Any money that I raised came directly from people who supported me, went right into the fund that I used for, you know, the little bit of advertising I could get with those funds, and plus, a bit of my own money involved in supporting other candidates as well as my own candidacy. So
Well, and I think
it
it's
was two
time.
part. I feel bad. I didn't want to disrespect the GOP, but at the same time, it was a win because it opened my eyes to what was going on with WinRed.
Well, and I think it's not even a disrespect thing. We're seeing what's going on and we're seeing what's happening. And I think it's time, like Justin's saying, it's grassroots. We need a coalition,
Yeah.
and we get our candidates together. And, we're elected for our district, but as being on the same team, we need to reach out and help our other conservative state committee people
Right.
and really start doing that. And I think if we can really help each other, we don't have to depend on the GOP. I've never had to, nor have they ever helped me, but it's okay because we had many races. Justin, yours was very close.
Yes.
We don't, and we didn't spend a lot of money. We just need a team. We need a coalition of teams, and we got to get out there. And I'm telling you, the
Word of
voters
mouth.
are listening. The voters are paying attention, and the GOP right now are ignoring the voters in my mind.
Same.
And I don't want to be a part of that
Well,
because I ran for the voters.
yeah. One thing I noticed too, and I think people are going to notice, and it's part of this channel, and it's part of the discussions I have with people. Is in when I started this, and Jim lives up like an hour away from me, and he helped me out immensely on my campaign. And we would talk a lot. There was other people, and he put me in touch with other people, and I looked locally for other candidates and politicians, to
Yeah.
build support.
Yeah.
And you didn't see that happening a lot last year. And now I said, why aren't we
No.
backing each other? Why aren't we helping? And now what's happening is we're making these connections, right? Aaron, you live up in middle northern Massachusetts.
North
Maria,
Central.
North Central. Maria lives southeastish or whatever. And
I'm in your backyard.
yeah, you're in my backyard. Yeah,
Oh, you're in
just
my
for people
backyard.
listening,
No,
people listening and watching.
you're in my backyard.
Yeah,
For some
20
of it, I
minutes
don't know.
north of Worcester.
Yeah, but that's the thing is we're making connections where we're discussing and we're moving in spite of what's going on. And I think that resonates with people. I think what resonates is you have all these obstacles happening, whether it be the GOP, whether it be lack of funds, whether it be a lot of things. And you're sitting here and saying, okay, there's hardships. So what? I mean, we have to show that we're creative. We have to show that we're better thinking. We have to show that we're adults and we can have adult discussions with people and show
Yes.
people that we have a better way. And I think this is what's happening. Anyone that listens or watches this, hopefully they come away with say, hey, listen, there are 4 people on that screen. Maria, you're kind of in my backyard, but we're all kind of geographically separated, all have a similar goal, and all are going to work together w- amongst ourselves and with other
Right.
people we're already working with.
Right.
Integrity
Engaging our
and
districts.
persistence.
Yes.
Persistence, integrity. Because, you've seen the memes, I'm sure people give up till they get to the final. They just give up just before that last whack could, spring forth the biggest win they ever thought. You don't give up. I lost my race last year, and now look at me. I'm a
Yep.
committee man. You persist, you persist, you persist. Why? You keep your integrity and you mean what you say. And the people, your friends, it trickles out. That really is the butterfly effect. Your friends will trust you, they'll believe in you, and word gets around. Yeah, hey, listen to this guy, and he's been doing what he said. And I've seen Maria that way, and both you, Justin, and Jim are good role models for people as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
I think both of your stories really highlight kind of the direction that we need to move in as a state. So I just have some data here, and this is going to be shocking, actually. So in the FEC account, so we talked about the Republican National Committee donating to the Mass GOP. So from 2013 to 2018, the RNC on average donated $660,000 a year on average from 2013 to 2018. Now, fast forward between 2019 to 2021, the average donation was 15 grand. So we all know that the Mass GOP turned conservative leadership in 2019. So we flipped from $650,000 a year to $15,000 a year. So it just goes to show you how much the party can put their foot on the scale when they want to push an agenda or they want to push a certain group. Because it's clear as day in the data to me, and I think it's like you both have kind of lived through that where you experienced the party donating, either not supporting you or back channeling money to your opponents actually, and
Yeah.
to kind of
Or
see you
just
guys
ignoring us like we didn't exist.
Yeah, I
to
was
see you
number
guys come
5
through
on
this
that list.
journey is like absolutely amazing for me to see, because it's like you were on it, you've helped turn the ship around, and now all of a sudden we're starting to move in the right direction, and it's just really rewarding to see to me as an outsider.
I thank you for that. And it's a good time for me because of going through all that and seeing what happened within my own races and meeting new people like Justin and Aaron, like-minded people, because it is very frustrating when you're going through it and I guess when I went in there, like I said, I was hoping that there was going to be some kind of healing, some kind of, you know, I don't know, moving on. And I think at this point, what I'd like to say to voters and donators that is, you know, what I witnessed was a complete divide. And sadly, one side is picking who's going to be running and ignoring the other one, and that behavior is going to continue. So we need to change that behavior for the voters and the candidates, because at this point, I didn't see anything going to change. I didn't feel like we were welcomed in. You know, we got ratified on the caucus, but, you know, and we were recognized that we won, but I didn't feel any welcome. And I did have people come over and introduce me from the other side. I had great people. There's a lot of great people in that committee. But there's just too much division. And I think the chair needs to find a creative way. I don't know. You can't control people. But like I said, in order to bring back that, I don't know, reputation, it's going to take a lot of work, because the damage is done, and the media's helped with that, you know, with all this stuff, and it's hurting us, it's hurting the voters, it's hurting our state.
And my input on
So,
the committee, and I know the next one is September, but this past committee meeting that we just had, I went in with open ears. Well, and you know, like I said, I was surprised by some of it and confirmed by a lot of it. And my total analysis of the entire evening and listening and observing is that we few that just joined the team brought it just closer to middle ties, if anything.
Yeah.
You know, depending on what the topic will be. So there's no bigger swing either side. We're going to be facing a lot of debates over the next year until people get reelected. For now, we just have to stay the course, look out for our local candidates in our own, you know, state districts, Senate districts, and get our good conservative patriots elected.
Yeah, it's funny though, because I've talked to both of Aaron and Maria, and even Jim, obviously Jim. But I've talked to, because once you were both in your caucuses elected, there was that in between period where you had to wait till last Thursday to actually be installed as the committee person. I- Um, but I think what happens is when you got into that seat or started thinking you're going to be in that seat, you started realizing there was no way you're going to win anything unless you bridge those divides. And the best thing is, I know Maria, especially, she called me once and she's like, Justin, you're right. Like, we have to bridge divides. We have to kind of maybe work with people that other people like don't work with them. And we have to do things to show that we want to win. Like, we're not going to solve all the problems first and then start winning. We have to start winning, and as we start winning, then look at the problems or look at some of the things. And we have to get our act together. We have to be the adults, and that's what gives me hope, because I was out last week with a person that's going to be running for state committee, and we were just having like a planning meeting, and he was sitting there and he was bad mouthing Jeff Deal. He's like, "Oh, Jeff Deal," and I go, "What are you talking about, dude? You know what I mean?" And he's like, "Man," and I go, "Listen," I go, "I'll tell it to you this way: whether you like him or not, I said you have to support him, and I'm going to tell you why." I said, "Let's say you had a buddy of yours, and he was a raving Democrat, but he goes, 'Hey, listen, I'm going to give you $1,000 for your campaign just because we're buddies.' Would you sit there and say, 'I'm not going to take that $1,000 because you're a Democrat?' I'd be like, 'I'm taking that $1,000 and I'm going to beat the person that you're going to vote for.'" And that's how we have to be smart. We have all these things like we're better people and we don't deal with these people. Well, we have to deal with everybody, and that's one of the things is you as politicians, a state rep, running for state senate, is you meet a lot of people in the party, outside the party, that want you to do all these different things, and you're not going to do all those different things. You can't do all those different things, but you sit and you listen
right.
and you say, "Hey, maybe there's a compromise, maybe there's somewhere we can move. And again, here then you start saying compromise, and people like, oh, you're just gonna give up like every other Republican. And I say, no, but you have to understand, you're not gonna win a war in a day. And I tell this to people. I go, Democrats, we didn't get where we are right now because Democrats took it all at once. They've been doing this for 50, 60 years. And what they do is they take an inch, they take an inch, they take an inch. And we're sitting here, unless you take the whole mile, we're not going to vote for you. That doesn't work. Can't we have like half a brain? I mean, just half a brain. That doesn't work. Let's get people elected. Let's come together. Let's find things that we can at least agree on. And one of the things, I know I've talked to you all about this too, and I had a unity meeting and I felt bad because I kind of lashed out at people, is I tell people I'm fighting for my family, I'm fighting for this country. And when you say that, everyone in the room agrees. Everyone's like, yeah, I'm fighting for this country, I'm fighting for my family. And then I hold them to it and I go, but you can't deal with a person you don't like for 30 minutes every month because you're like, oh, that person's in the room, I can't deal with that person. What's that person doing here? Listen, if that person you don't like is helping the person that you want to win so you can start making changes, and you really care about your family and you really care about your country, put your differences aside. Say, hey, listen, for 30 minutes, I'll deal with that, deal with it, and let's move forward. But until we have people that can do that, that's another thing. We're going to be sunk. You got to, I don't want to say grow up, but grow up.
Well, and that's a very good point. And that's a lot of the division, right? The division within the voters, within the party. And, we do have to find common ground. I may support something that another Republican doesn't. But that doesn't mean I have to hate you and not support you. I'm going to stick to my values and my beliefs, but I'm not going to attack you for your own.
Correct.
But this is where I was talking about demographically. My area may be a lot different than Aaron's.
Sure.
And, he knows his voters out there. He knows what's going on. But I think at this point of the game, that all of this has created, it's trickled down to the voters that it's even hard to even get anybody to run, right?
Yes.
They're afraid to run or they don't want to run. So finding candidates is very challenging also. So at this point, I think our whole country needs to heal from what we've all gone on. And I think we're dealing with a lot of post-traumatic responses because of what happened, honestly. Yeah. And I think it's a harder challenge to reach out to people because they are traumatized and they don't trust that things are going to go better their way. And my concern within the party is that, again, I'm going to reiterate it, that we're not expanding the party. They're still dealing within their own circle. So I don't know how we can grow it if they're not going to let us grow it. And I can get along with you if we differ in opinion.
Yes.
But I don't agree with them taking a great candidate and totally destroying them for their established candidate. That's something I won't engage in.
Jim, why don't you tell us about the big tent party? Because one of our first discussions, you're like, we're the GOP, we're the big tent parties. Why don't you explain that to the people out there that I think have forgotten what it means to be the big tent party? Because you did a great job explaining that to me.
Well, I think what you're talking about too. You see it across the local level as well, not just for within the Mass GOP, but within town politics as well. And I've seen it in my own town where we have a lot of people running as unenrolled. The town elections are nonpartisan, so they'd rather just stay unenrolled and not have to deal with the partisan side of it. But it's gotten to the point where the towns themselves, they feel like the entire community is not engaged with the decisions that the town is making. And a lot of that is because when people do get engaged, it becomes so negative, and they get, whether it's a character assassination or they come after, bring it down to their family, or, it's just a lot of stuff gets thrown around. So so a lot of people, it's easier to just kind of put your head down and not really get engaged. And I think we're seeing that across the Commonwealth, where a lot of people have tried to get engaged at some point or another, and they've been shouted down, or they've been attacked by
Yeah.
the mob, and they're sick of it. They don't want to deal with it, and they just put their head down, or they move to another state. And when we look
Yeah.
across the state, I mean, we saw this past election cycle, 66% of the races went uncontested on the Republican side across the state, really. And I think that's part of the impact of this, is you get people that don't want to run in these seats. And I think by fixing some of these divisions in the Mass GOP, essentially what we're doing is we're building role models. So I think when people see Aaron running, and when they see Maria running, and they see people running across the state that don't have a background in politics, and they see them carrying the torches that out there on the front lines, it's like, I mean, those are really rewarding stories. It's a great experience for people to see, and they're like, hey, if they can do it, I might throw my hat in the ring too. And like you said, it's like that network effect. All of a sudden their story resonates. They talk to an RTC, they talk to a group of people, 100 people hear the story, maybe 10 people from that group are like, you know what, I want to get involved too. And that's how the message spreads, and that's how we get more people involved, and get them
I
off the
agree.
sidelines from the unenrolled into the
Absolutely, and
into the party.
that's the only way we're going to grow this party, or even win elections. And at this point, my focus is my district. I will help other districts, but right now we need to win some elections. It's really important.
That would be nice.
Wouldn't it? And I think that we have the capability to do that, but we need a message to these unenrolls. We really need a message to join us. And, because if you run as an independent in Massachusetts, you don't even get, that's not the answer. Some people think, oh, I'm going to run as an independent. That doesn't work. It just takes votes away from the candidate.
It's a
I've had that
suicide
happen.
mission, really.
And I've had people try to fund against me, but that's neither here nor there. But my point is they're sending the same message. It's the same message. It's the same story. It's the same thing that they're going to keep doing. It's the definition of insanity. So
Yeah,
as grassroots, we need to redefine what we want as us as conservatives, and give ourselves a label, not let them label us.
Yep. Go ahead, Aaron.
The district that I'm now representing for the interim is it's an honor first and foremost. I'm very privileged to have been elected for the spot, and I'm not trying to convince anybody either side of anything. I just like presenting the truth and the facts and speaking with integrity, and that's what a lot of the voters here in this district want. They want truth, no matter who messed up, either side. They want the truth. They want the integrity to go along with it. You pay the price. As I say, you pay the piper. Now, my goal is not to become some high-powered, labeled, whatever you want. It's to inspire others like myself, like Maria, like Jim, like Justin, to get out there and use your voice. I don't want to be your voice. I want to inspire you to be your own voice, to speak up. We're not the old country club Republicans by any means. We are true conservatives, especially in this district. I'm a constitutional patriot. That's how I identify. You don't like it? Too bad. This is what we were founded on. This is what the values our grandparents taught us. You remember your grandparents. If you still have grandparents alive, be thankful. They are a wealth of knowledge, and you have to have had to learn something, whether they were once a Democrat, old school Kennedy style,
Yep.
or Republican, Eisenhower Reagan style. It's either way. There's conservative values of 1, God, 2, country, 3, your family, and you respect all of them. That's what the voters here want. They want that pursuit of undying happiness the way they want to do it, with the truth and integrity to back it up.
Well said.
False, they also want to be able to support their family, feed their kids, have a good education, not be infiltrated with the extreme liberal agenda. Parents are angry, kids are scared. I mean,
God, country,
people,
family.
I mean, and I have grandchildren right now in the school system here, and it bothers me. And I guess what I want to say is, and probably what Aaron's trying to say is that we are for the voters because we are you.
Yes.
And
We
if,
are you.
I'm not going to become this country club because I'm not going to forget who put me there. I'm not going to forget where I came from. And I'm going to remember what's important for our state, our families, our voters, our areas. And, people are afraid to speak out. They'll go out and vote. But I'm telling you right now, we need more voters because our percentage is down. We have talked about that.
Yes.
And what is the GOP, Mass GOP, suggesting we do to bring more people into our party? Or is it just to bring more money to select their candidates? So at this point, you know, I agree with Aaron. We need more people that are like us, Justin, and candidates that really can relate to the people. How many politicians do you talk to? You've helped them on their campaign, and then you see them at the next thing, and they're like,
Who are you?
they don't know
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Well, I think
And I'm like, oh yeah,
I
I
just want
worked
to
hard
make
for you.
one major point to the public viewing this and listening. My own spot, and I'm pretty much all the caucus seats. This is an unpaid position.
Right.
This is totally voluntary for
Yeah.
us. I'm not
Yeah.
doing this for anything other than to help rectify what is going on.
good
So
point.
I'm not
We need
chasing any
negotiators.
cash. I'm not chasing glory or anything. I've got a mission, and this is to help people around my backyard and across the state of Massachusetts.
And if we get in there and more meetings and there starts to be some healing from the past, and we see that, going forward, they're going to embrace and build a bridge with us, wait and see what
We'll get the
happens.
word out.
I'm hoping that I'm not feeling very hopeful about it because I didn't get that energy or even that from the chair lady. I didn't feel that. She had already picked her committee people. She's already got all who she wanted. We weren't invited in that fold because I guess we weren't um,
We weren't verified
ratified
yet.
yet.
Yeah.
We weren't ratified yet, but then she had already picked that before this meeting. So I felt pushed out of that process because maybe I would have wanted to be on the budget committee, or how did she select it? And she didn't reach out to me and say, hey, Maria, would you like to be on this committee? She did pass out a paper of what our interest was, maybe
Right.
going forward. I checked off issues. That's my thing I wanted.
My
Well,
bylaws.
the silver lining in all of this is that the last state committee elections were March of 2020. And at that
Right.
time, I think, it was still pretty confused over what was going on within the party. And I think Aaron explains it best. 2022 was the year that the scab was ripped off. And we really saw a lot of this stuff come to light. And, I think the lines are drawn a little bit clearer now. So I think the regular voter and the regular Republican kind of understands the picture of what's going on in the state a little bit more. And the next state committee elections are going to be in March of 2024. So that gives us a chance to roll the dice again and kind of potentially reorganize. I think that might reflect how the regular Massachusetts Republican is feeling today versus how they were in March of 2020.
Yeah. So
I agree. I agree.
we kind of
Good
have to end. I
recall.
know it's getting a little long, so we have to end it. Obviously, we're gonna have you both back, um, and probably a couple of times leading up to your race, because one of the things we always say on this show is, listen, do something. Right? Doing nothing is no longer an option. And I think everyone thinks to do something means you have to do something great or spectacular. And not we understand not everyone has the capacity to do that. So again, we say go to standouts, donate money, tell people, join your RTCs, because again, if you want to see conservatives keep getting elected to state committee things who will put up good candidates that can win and they'll actually be supported, this is a way you can do it. And what I think what happens is a lot of people don't understand how they can actually affect their community, and it doesn't take a lot of time. It's a couple hours a month.
Right.
Maybe going to an RTC meeting is an hour or two a month. Some do every couple of months, every 3 months. It's not a lot of hours, but you can actually have an impact
You
and
have a voice.
have a voice.
And I'll tell you, the worker bees on the that I worked with, I'm telling you, these people get no recognition, nor do they want it.
Yep.
They work their butts off. They're passing out the signs, they're doing flyers, they're doing the hard work.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of network you need. And there's some great people out there that when it comes time and you need them, they're right there for you. And that's what's going to help us.
Well, I'm glad you said that too, because that's another point I should probably reiterate more often is a lot of people feel discouraged. A lot of people feel like we're losing. And I always see it different. And it's not because I'm an optimist, I'm actually a realist, is when you're a candidate and you're actually out meeting people and you're working with people and dealing with people and actually doing things, you understand the amount of people that are pushing back, the amount of people that want change. And if you don't see
Yes.
that, go to the places that people are doing that, and you'll meet a lot and you'll feel energized to do that too.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you, Justin.
Well-
Because when you get feeling that, I get that way. I'm like, oh boy, how are we going to fix this? And I'm like, we're going to fix it.
Yes, we're
Right
gonna.
now,
Because
I'm
we the
running for-
people, yeah, we're
Running
going
for
to
city
fix it. And
council,
we're
so
going
I
to reach out to the
understand
people.
perfectly.
Yes, go get it, Aaron.
And the thing of it is I think the voters, this is my last thing,
Yes.
the voters are aware how serious the issues are in our state right now and our
Yep.
country. So it would behoove the people sitting in office right now or who they're running to not lose sight of that,
Correct.
because we're in some scary times. Baker just left us with $2.5 billion, and it's going to be hard for any Baker candidate to even be taken seriously at this point. This is our time to move away from that and show a better way and a different way. And I think we can do it. I really
I know we
do.
can.
I agree.
We got great people. We have
Well-
great people. I mean, this is awesome.
Yeah.
It's
Well, thank
awesome.
you, thank you everyone for taking the time. I'm super excited. Like I said, we're definitely gonna have you on in the future a lot of times, and when you get good candidates, we're gonna have those on the show. And we're doing things different.
Oh, I
We're being
appreciate
unique, and we're gonna get after it. And like as I say, we're gonna do something. So I appreciate everything you've done. I appreciate it, Jim, Aaron, Maria. You have a wonderful day, and thank you for
You
everything
guys
you've
are
done.
all great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for
care.
having
You too.
me. You're all great.
All right, bye.
Cool.
Bye.